Hello friends, I am Sunil Ranjan and I am an English teacher. Well, now I have come up with the plot structure of Emma, the novel written by Jane Austen. Here I begin. The novel Emma by Jane Austen has several small stories within one, but all have been unified remarkably well by the writer. Many different love triangles run through the book. Harriet and Mr. Martin, Harriet and Mr. Elton, Harriet and Mr. Knightley, Emma and Mr. Elton, Emma and Frank Churchill, Emma and Mr. Knightley, Jane Fairfax and Frank Churchill, Mr. Elton and Miss Hawkins, that is Mrs. Elton. All these little love stories or half-love stories often seem to be more or less the same story. There is element of humor running through such romantic involvement of the characters. Now, coming to the point, leisureliness. So, you can write leisureliness as a point, as a heading. So, here I move ahead. Miss Austen puts her story together with interesting leisureliness. None of its material is exciting. There is little external climatic action, and there is no adventurous action in the novel. This is because it is a satirical novel about social manners. The satire comes more from the effects of emotion than from emotion itself. When analyzed closely, it comes up as one of the most tightly knit works ever done. Now the next point is the element of irony. Much of the book is plotted for purposes of irony, which shows the difference between intention and performance, or the difference between what a character knows and what others know. Miss Austen exploits the misunderstandings and the shortcomings of the people in her provincial community, especially those of Emma. For instance, all that Frank Churchill does and says in the party to Box Hill takes double meaning, and one discovers that it is leisurely only in appearance. Similarly, one can sense the irony in how Emma misinterprets Mr. Elton's gallantry or Harriet's attachment for Mr. Knightley simply because the characters are too mannered to speak directly. Now the next point, division of plot structure. The plot structure of the novel is regulated in part by division into 3 volumes. In volume 1, Emma deceives herself about Mr. Elton, and that deception reaches its climax in his declaration in the carriage. In volume 2, Emma deceives herself about Frank Churchill. Emma continues with her self-deception about people, but reaches its major climax in the ultimate revelation about herself and George Knightley. There are many other developing facets involved, but these are the 3 rising and falling stages of action in the novel. Volume 3 is the final one, as Emma throughout is more and more self-deceived, though at the same time she is also moving towards self-knowledge, which lets her come to terms with herself and her situation. Now the next point, conflicts in plot structure. The motive force for plot in fiction is generally one or more of 3 kinds of conflict. Man against man, man against environment, or man against himself. The force of man against man is incidental, but important to the overall satire of the novel and can be seen in the social manipulations of various characters. The force of man against environment is seen primarily in terms of Emma versus her social surroundings. She goes against the accepted manners and social ranks in trying to manipulate Harriet either from or into the social and personal lives of others. But the most consistent plot force in the novel is man against himself. Emma constantly deceives herself and is thus in conflict with herself. All 3 motive forces for the plot are found in Emma, But the last two forces, man against environment and man against himself, predominate and are in essence the same, as Emma is ironically against herself because she is against her environment. She has accepted the norms of a society, but at the same time, due to her imbalance of imagination and reason, she wants to go against it. Both the norms and her opposing decision are important to her. So there is conflict. Now the next point, classic plot. The pattern of plot involvement of Emma is classic. Emma's conflict begins when her determined imagination is released by the loss of Miss Taylor. There comes a vacuum in her life, which she desires to be filled as she likes. Emma's self-deception realizes and manifests itself. The major climax comes in the final volume, followed by a loosening denouement. This movement is like the rising, peaking, and falling on a graph. Now the next point is contrast. Finally, another major plot pattern used in the novel is that of contrast. Plot manipulation not only arranges to put significantly different characters together, but also often develops a special rhythm by placing introspective scene next to one of social interaction. The plot of the novel by Jane Austen is quite complex. It has more than one element often working at the same time. Emma is a planned general social satire, which is composed of classic pattern and contrast. All facets of the novel are based upon conflict. Even the last motive force, which is man against man, results from the conflict between social intention and performance. So friends, here I come to the end of this video that was on plot structure of the novel Emma by Jane Austen. Well, if you have subscribed to my channel, thank you very much. If you haven't, do subscribe to my channel, and I promise you that I'll be coming up with fine videos for you. Thank you very much.